Maybe you've heard about gouache paint and you wonder what it is exactly, how is it different from other mediums, how do you store it, how do you paint with it, how do you protect it? I have all the answers for you. Hello, bonjour, I'm Cécile, a French artist, and I'm specialized in gouache paint. Gouache is my passion and I want you to love it as much as I do. I'm painting this portrait of Harry Styles while answering your questions about gouache. First thing first, what is gouache paint? It's a water-based paint that's made with pigments, and I would say a lot of pigments and large size pigments. A binder and usually Arabic gum. It has a creamy consistency and you can make vibrant opaque colors with gouache. Sometimes people say that gouache is opaque watercolor. I completely disagree with that. They are very similar, yes, but they are also very different. You can go from dark to light or light to dark with gouache. It doesn't really matter. With watercolor, you need to plan very carefully before painting because you want to preserve the white of the paper. With gouache, you can apply pure white on top of black paint. It's not a problem. So I would say consistency make them different and opacity as well. And also something that has it up and downs is that gouache can be reactivated once it's dry on the paper, unlike watercolor. So these are the main difference. And I mean by that, acrylic includes acrylic gouache, or whatever marketing names you can take here and there, but they are not gouache, they are acrylic. And the main difference is that acrylic cannot be reactivated once it's dry. And it's valid for the paper and also for your palette. If you have leftover of acrylic on your palette, it's wasted forever. You can only throw it away. But with gouache, you can reactivate what is left on your palette. So this is really a good thing. And also acrylic comes with different finish. It can be a bit shiny or it can be matte. And this is what they call acrylic gouache, which is, as I said, not gouache. So don't be fooled by marketing. Well, they are very different. The binder with gouache is usually Arabic gum and you can dilute gouache with water. But with oil, the pigment is suspended in a drying oil, like linseed oil, for example. And you also have, which is a bit confusing, what they call water mixable oil. So you could also use them with water, even if there is an oil vehicle inside. But you can achieve quite similar results with both. It depends how you work with your gouache and how you work with your oil painting. I would say the main difference is the drying time. A gouache is drying is less than a minute, and oil, unless you add a medium to it, it will dry in days, weeks, months. And actually it doesn't dry at all, it's just hardening. And I made a video where I compare both side to side, so you can really see what I mean. What surface can you use with gouache? Paper, of course. But unlike watercolor, you don't need a fancy, expensive paper. It's not mandatory and it's not what will make the difference in your painting at the end. It's more the quality of the paint than the quality of the paper. So any kind of paper, and if you are not using too much water in your gouache, it could even be copy paper. It doesn't really matter. But it can also be cardboard. Don't use too much water either. It can be wood. It can be canvas. It can be different things. I've been personally painting directly on wood without any priming and it works very well. Gouache is really versatile. And if you have more questions about gouache, you could join my Facebook group that is called Gouache Painters. How surprising. And ask any question you like. This is a really friendly group and everyone is eager to help. You have the link in the description of the video. Or just type a comment, maybe. It's over, like you prefer. You have different ways to reach me, and I'm always happy to answer your questions about gouache, if I know the answer. There are different ways to store gouache tubes, and it really depends how much you have of them. I confess I have a lot, so I need to store them in a way I can find the color I need. But the easiest way is to keep it in the box that came from the manufacturer. Sometimes they have nice little plastic lids where you can put it inside. You could also use simple Ziploc bags that you can sort by color or maybe by cool and warm colors, or you can store them in drawers. You have a lot of options. The only thing is you want to avoid your paint to be in the direct sun, close to the heater, because it really doesn't like heatness. So keep it in a cool, safe space without direct light, and make sure you close securely the lids on them. Some brands are more useful than others with their lids, but beware of that, or you will get a dry paint inside. Well, I mean professional art, I mean selling your art. So you want to be sure that the person buying it has something really neat and durable. This is the most important. So first thing is use artist quality grade. This is really important because you have access to information about light fastness. Light fastness meaning how long will the paint take before fading if exposed to direct light. Second tip, take only light fast colors, and beware, some are really fugitive. Third tip is you want to apply a varnish to protect your painting, and for this the best is to use Doron wax. And I have a lot of videos about everything I'm talking about. I link them in the description under this video, so you can get more information if you need it. And the fourth tip is if you sell your art, you might want to tell your buyer that it's best to protect gouache behind the glass, so it protects from the dust, and also not to hang it in a wall facing the direct sun. So the question is, can you do mixed media with gouache? Yes, but not with everything. I would say you can add gouache on top of acrylic, for example, but not the other way around, and you don't want to mix gouache and oil painting. Believe me, I've tried and it's a complete mess. But any other water-based medium is really fine with gouache. It can be acrylic, as we said, but it can also be watercolor. And I use it also with oil pastels, soft pastels, crayons, colored pencils, acrylic markers, ink, acrylic ink, almost anything. Just beware of oil painting, and oil pastels can be a bit tricky. So any water-based and you're safe. This is one of the best side of gouache because you can clean everything, your brushes, your palette, your skin, your clothes, your desk, your walls, if you are really dripping everywhere, with just water and a tiny bit of soap. I'm using a regular soap, nothing fancy. You don't need to buy the specific soap for brushes or whatever. It doesn't hurt the brushes, and you could even let the paint inside your brushes for a while before cleaning. It won't hurt them, although I would not recommend that you do that. Especially if you've been watching my video about how brushes are made. You want to take good care of your brushes, so everything with tap water and a tiny bit of soap. If this video is helpful, please boop the like button so more people can see it. Merci. So you want to protect your gouache, your finished gouache, from two things: dust and sun, and humidity, so that makes three, sorry. The best is to use a varnish, either a spray or as I said, a wax, cold wax medium that you will apply with a cloth, a soft cloth, and rubbing to protect your paint. I personally don't like the look it gives to the finished painting, so I'd rather let my gouache paint raw, just as it is, and protect it behind a glass, and I don't hang it in front of the sun. But besides that, there is nothing much to do about gouache. Beware though, because the surface is kind of fragile, so you could make some marks with just your nails while manipulating it. You can easily fix your mistakes. Well, until some point. Don't make me say that you can fix any mistake. But let's say you have the wrong color in some part. Let's say you have a red and you actually want it to be yellow. So you need to remove the red first. So grab a clean brush, clean water, and rub the paint gently so you reactivate the paint, and you can lift up with a cloth. Just tap the cloth on the paper and lift up the pigments. Do this very gently because it really depends on the type of paper you've been using. If you are painting on a copy paper, you can just throw it away and go back for another one. But you have a sturdy paper like watercolor paper, you can lift up the color before and even add a layer of opaque white and then add the color you want. So you can fix mistakes at some point. And I have a complete video about that where I show that step by step. I'm afraid this is not as much as you think it is. I'd say 3 or 4 layers maximum. Because why would you layer? Is it to glaze? Is it to change color? Is it to fix a mistake? Is it to add texture? It really depends. But the basic rule is increase the consistency as you build up the layers, meaning the first one should be very, very thin, almost like watercolor, a tea consistency, and the more layers you add, the more thickness you have. And the last layer should be direct from the tube, very, very thick. This is how you can layer without trouble, but at some point you won't be able to add more colors because the paper will be soaked and you will get mud no matter what you do. That's a good thing with gouache. You don't need fancy brushes. You don't need to buy expensive brushes like watercolor. You can get synthetic, flat, round, basic brushes, maybe even very cheap one. The one that you get at the dollar store, they can do the job. Really, I have some and they work very well. So I'd say you don't need much. Just 3 brushes are enough to paint with gouache. Usually you're not working in large sizes, so a flat brush 1 inch wide, a round brush with a fine tip, and that would be enough, I think. If your gouache is not opaque, you have basically 2 reasons. The first one is you are using too much water in your mix and you are using gouache like watercolor. If you want to have opaque color, you need to have creamy consistency. And second reason that might be why your gouache is not opaque is that not all pigments are opaque. And for this, you need to refer to the symbol on the tubes. Every good brand has a symbol that will explain if the pigment is opaque, half opaque, or transparent. And usually colors like pink are transparent, yellows also are transparent. You want to adjust the way you paint to the type of pigment that you have. And I guess that's all for today. If you have any other questions about gouache that I have not answered in this video, please let me know in comments so I can make a part 2 and so everyone can have his question answered. And I hope you liked this portrait of Harry Styles. I had fun painting it. I was trying to convey his bright and bold joy with a lot of colors. And I'm quite happy with the result. So thanks for watching. See you soon.